What happens when a country music legend sits down for what should be a simple interview, only to face condescension and subtle attacks from a host, who thinks her platform gives her the right to belittle anyone in just 26 seconds? A single, sharp exchange would unravel the entire segment, setting the stage for one of the most shocking exits in morning television history. Reba McEntire stepped onto the Today Show set that morning with the warmth, poise, and professionalism that had defined her career for over 4 decades. The Queen of Country had seen it all: sold-out arenas, backstage drama, chart-topping hits, and personal struggles exposed to the public eye. Yet nothing could have prepared her for what was about to unfold in the bright, glaring lights of Studio 1A. From the moment she arrived, the energy in the studio felt off. Makeup artists whispered in corners. Production assistants avoided eye contact. Something was simmering beneath the surface. But Reba, ever the consummate professional, focused on the purpose of her visit: to promote her new album, connect with fans, and share her music. Simple enough. Or so she thought. Savannah Guthrie sat across from her, flanked by Hoda Kotb and Craig Melvin, both genuinely excited to have Reba on the show. Cameras rolled. Millions of viewers tuned in, expecting the usual light-hearted morning banter. Everything appeared normal at first, lighting perfect, the set pristine but beneath the polish. Tension hung in the air. Savannah began with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Well, Reba, it's wonderful to have you here," she said. "You know, for someone who's been around as long as you have, you've still managed to stay somewhat relevant. That must feel good." There it was, praise disguised as a jab. Hoda shifted uneasily. Craig glanced down at his notes, silently hoping this wasn't the tone for the entire segment. Reba maintained her composure, her signature smile unwavering, though her eyes flickered with quiet recognition. "Thank you, Savannah. I think music is timeless. When you pour your heart into your work, people respond whether you've been doing it for 40 years or 4. Good music is good music." Savannah leaned back in her chair, smug satisfaction playing across her face, as if she had just landed a blow. Right? Right. But let's be honest, country music has changed a lot. Younger artists today, people like Casey Musgraves, Morgan Morris, they're pushing boundaries, bringing something fresh. Do you ever feel like your soundmate belongs to a different era? The studio seemed to freeze. A camera operator cleared his throat nervously. In the control room, a producer pressed her hand to her forehead, anticipating the inevitable social media backlash. Crew members exchanged worried glances. This was not how interviews were supposed to unfold. Professionals didn't treat one another this way. Hoda quickly stepped in, trying to steer the segment back on course. "What makes Reba so special," she said, "is that she's evolved with the times while staying true to herself. That takes talent. Not many artists can maintain relevance and authenticity for decades. And your new album has received glowing reviews. Critics are calling it some of your best work." Reba inclined her head toward Hoda with genuine gratitude. "Thank you, Hoda. This project has been very special. We've worked with incredible songwriters, people who understand the power of storytelling. The stories we tell about love, loss, hope, resilience are universal. Those themes never go out of style because they're part of the human experience." Even as she spoke, the tension lingered like a shadow across the set. Reba McEntire was a master of her craft, seasoned enough to navigate almost anything, but the subtle undercurrent of condescension was something she had never quite encountered in all her years in the spotlight. But Savannah wasn't finished. She leaned forward, cutting off Hoda before she could speak, her voice sharp and deliberate. Sure. But, Reba, you have to admit country music has kind of left traditional artists behind. When was the last time you had a #1 hit? Honestly curious because the charts today look very different from when you were at your peak." Craig visibly winced. This was not going well. Not at all. He glanced at the producers, silently asking if anyone could intervene. But the show had to go on. Reba inhaled slowly. Her signature smile, tightening just enough to hint at the first crack in her calm exterior. "Well, Savannah," she said evenly, "I've been fortunate enough to have over 35 #1 singles throughout my career. And while I appreciate the charts, I've never made music just to chase numbers. I make music that matters to me, to my fans. That has always been my priority. Success isn't about hitting #1. It's about creating something lasting, something that touches people's lives." Savannah's tone dripped with condescension. "So, you're saying you've given up competing with the younger generation? Your content being a legacy act?" Hoda's shoulders tensed. She looked like she might disappear under the table. Craig cleared his throat loudly, signaling Savannah to back off. But she was relentless, feeding off the discomfort she'd stirred. "I'm not competing with anyone," Reba said, her voice calm but now carrying an unmistakable edge. "Music isn't a sport. It's art, expression. I'm proud of the legacy I've built, artists I've inspired, the doors I've helped open for women in country music. That means more to me than any chart position ever could." "Legacy, huh?" Savannah shot back, her smirk sharpening. "A nice word for saying your best days are behind you. That's usually what people say when they can't keep up anymore." The studio fell silent. Even the crew exchanged stunned glances. Did she really just say that in live television to Reba McEntire? Craig immediately spoke up, his voice firm, protective. "Come on, Savannah. Reba is an icon. She's influenced countless artists. Her best days aren't behind her. Look at the tour she just announced. Every venue sold out in minutes. That doesn't happen if your peak is over." Reba offered Craig a small nod, eyes conveying quiet gratitude. But Savannah wasn't backing down. If anything, the tension fueled her. "Sold out? Sure," she said, her tone icy. "But to who? Exactly people your age, I imagine. Not the demographic driving the industry anymore. Music is youth-focused. You know your fans are aging out, and younger listeners aren't discovering your music the way they discover new artists." Hoda interjected again, her voice strained but firm, trying to salvage the segment. "Actually, that's not true, Savannah. Reba has fans of all ages. Young people love her music. They discover her songs on streaming platforms. They share them on TikTok. Her reach isn't limited to one generation." The tension in the studio thickened, the air almost vibrating with the clash between decades of experience and the host's calculated provocation. Reba's calm, measured presence contrasted sharply with Savannah's sharp-edged persistence. Leaving the room, bracing for what would come next, she crosses generations, which is incredibly rare and incredibly special. Reba turned to Hoda, her warmth genuine, grateful for the lifeline, but her eyes flicked back to Savannah with quiet resolve. She knew this interview was beyond saving. "I appreciate that, Hoda, and it's true. I get letters and messages from teenagers discovering my music for the first time. From people in their 70s and 80s who have been with me since the beginning. Music has a way of bringing people together. It creates connections sacred age, across background, across everything that normally divides us. That has always been the beauty of it for me." Savannah rolled her eyes. On live television, Craig's jaw tightened in disbelief, a mix of shock and disappointment etched across his face. "Okay," Savannah said, leaning in, a forced casualness in her tone. "Let's talk about something else, because clearly we're not going to agree on this. Your acting career, remember that sitcom? What was it called, Reba?" "That was years ago," Reba said evenly, though her voice now carried a quiet steel. "Almost 20 years ago. K.S. I've had other acting opportunities since that. I choose my projects carefully. I have earned the right to be selective. I do not need to take every role just to prove something to people who have already decided what they think of me. Savannah's eyes narrowed. Oh, so now you're saying I'm insulting you. Really, I'm just asking the honest questions viewers want answers to. Maybe you're too sensitive. Maybe that's the problem with your generation, you can't handle a little criticism. Everything has to be praise and compliments. Nobody can say anything real anymore. Reba's smile was gone now, replaced by a look of quiet dignity, tempered with barely concealed frustration. Her hands, which had rested lightly on the armrests, gripped them just a bit tighter. "Savannah," she said softly, every word deliberate, "I'm not sure what the goal of this interview is. If your purpose was just to insult me, you could have saved us both the time and said so in the email." My sitcom ran for 6 successful seasons. It was one of the most-watched shows on television during that time. We won awards. We touched lives. That's not something I need to defend or diminish, Toady. Craig jumped in immediately, his tone firm, protective. "Savannah, I think we need to refocus. Reba came here to talk about her new album, her upcoming tour, the music she's passionate about. Let's highlight that. Let's talk about the positive things happening in her career right now." But Savannah waved him off dismissively, as if his concerns were invisible, as if the segment belonged solely to her. "No, Craig," she said, leaning forward, her voice sharp. "I want to understand something. Reba seems genuinely upset because I'm asking real questions instead of fawning over her like everyone else. Is that what you expected when you came here today? Just praise. Softball questions. Just people telling you how wonderful you are?" Reba's jaw tightened, her polite composure cracking ever so slightly. Her hands folded moments before, now gripped the armrests with white-knuckled intensity. The lights felt hotter, the air thicker, as if the studio itself sensed the tension. "Savannah," Reba said, her voice controlled but firm. "There is a very clear difference between asking tough questions and being disrespectful. Between journalism and cruelty. Since the moment I sat down, you've been condescending. You've implied I'm irrelevant, that my music doesn't matter, that my career is over. You've dismissed decades of work as if it means nothing. Those are not questions, they are attacks. And I genuinely do not understand why you feel the need to treat a guest this way. What have I done to deserve this?" Hoda reached over, touching Reba's arm gently, her own voice trembling. "Reba, we're so glad you're here. Your fans are thrilled about your new music. I'm excited too. Can you tell us about the inspiration behind some of the songs? I know you wrote several of them yourself this time, which is different from previous albums." Reba inhaled deeply, centering herself. Music, her fans, the work she loved. This was why she was here. "Thank you, Hoda. Yes, this album is very personal. There's a song about resilience, about picking yourself up when life knocks you down. It's called Strong Enough. I wrote it during a really difficult time. I think a lot of people can relate to that message right now. We've all faced challenges, and sometimes we need a reminder that we're stronger than we think." Savannah cut her off mid-sentence. Impatience and disdain clear to everyone watching. "Right? But isn't that just the same theme you've sung about for 40 years? How many times can you write about being strong and overcoming adversity? It feels repetitive, as if you're recycling the same ideas because you have nothing new to say. Don't you think?" Reba's expression shifted, her eyes steady now, the first spark of quiet fire appearing beneath her calm exterior. The professionalism was still there. But beneath it, something else was building: decades of experience. Facing difficult people, impossible questions, high-stakes situations. All of it was being tested right now. "Savannah," Reba said, her voice calm but resolute. "What you're missing is that human experiences are universal. People have been writing about love for thousands of years, But that doesn't make new love songs irrelevant. Loss, pain, hope, these themes have always mattered because they are part of being human. My job as a songwriter is to find new ways to express those timeless emotions, to tell stories that connect with people wherever they are in their lives. Savannah leaned back, waving a hand dismissively. Convenient excuse, isn't it? It's for not evolving, for not taking risks. Playing. It's safe because you know your audience will buy whatever you put out, regardless of quality. Craig interjected, voice tight with controlled frustration. Savannah, that's not fair. Reba has taken risks throughout her career. She was one of the first country artists to blend rock and pop. She's experimented with different sounds, different producers. She's never played at sci-fi. That's why she's had such longevity. Reba gave Craig a brief, grateful glance, then turned back to Savannah. Voice measured and unwavering. I appreciate Craig defending me, but I can speak for myself. Savannah, I have never played it safe. Every album I make is a risk. Every time I step on stage, it's a risk. Every time I put my heart into a song, I risk criticism, rejection, failure. But I do it anyway because I love what I do. Because it matters. Not because my fans will buy anything I release, but because I respect them enough to give them my best every single time. Savannah shook her head, faux sympathy dripping from her voice. Interesting. You talk about respect, about love, about giving your best. But your sales numbers tell a different story. Your last album didn't even go gold, did it? When was the last time you went platinum? I'm just trying to understand the gap between how you see your career and what the numbers show. Hoda gasped, hand flying to her mouth, her eyes pleading silently with the producers. This had gone too far. Way beyond acceptable. Savannah, Hoda said firmly, voice trembling slightly. That's enough. Those questions are inappropriate. We don't ambush guests with their sales figures. That's not what this show is about. But the moment had passed. Reba sat perfectly still, face unreadable. Then, with deliberate, controlled slowness, she reached up and began removing her earpiece. The small microphone clipped to her collar was next. Reba's eyes locked on Savannah, steady and unwavering. You want to talk numbers, Savannah? Fine. Let me give you some numbers. Her voice was calm, measured, but carried a weight that made everyone on set lean in. Over 80 million records sold worldwide. 16 #1 albums, 41 #1 singles. 3 Grammy Awards, 17 American Music Awards, 9 People's Choice Awards. Over 50 major industry honors, and a Kennedy Center honor. But do you know which number matters most to me? The millions of people whose lives my music has touched. The fans who tell me my songs got them through the hardest moments of their lives. That's the number I care about, not whether my last album went gold or platinum or whatever arbitrary metric you want to use to define success. She removed a microphone, placing it deliberately on the table in front of her. The gesture was deliberate, final. A quiet signal. The line had been crossed. Reba stared at Savannah for a long, steady moment, searching her face for any sign of recognition, any trace of the humanity that had clearly been missing from the conversation. Then she rose. Slowly, deliberately. You know what, Savannah? I've been in this business longer than you've been alive. I faced critics who said I'd never make it. I faced people who didn't believe in me. I've faced every challenge imaginable, professional setbacks, personal tragedies, but I have never, not once in my career, been treated with such blatant, intentional disrespect by someone claiming to be a professional journalist. This is not journalism. This is not an interview. This is you using your platform to tear someone down. I cannot, and I will not, understand why. The studio froze. Cameras rolled, capturing every second. Hoda's eyes widened in shock. Craig leaned forward, uncertain whether to intervene or stay out of it. Savannah, by contrast, seemed almost pleased, as if this confrontation was exactly the climax she had been hoping for. "Oh, come on, sit down. Don't be so dramatic." This is how interviews work in the real world. I push, you respond. That's good television. That's what gets viewers talking. You should understand that after all your years in the entertainment industry. Reba shook her head slowly, her voice calm, unwavering, but with a quiet intensity that demanded attention. "No, Savannah. Good television is respectful dialogue. Good television elevates your guests. It does not tear them down to make you feel powerful. Good television asks challenging questions with grace and professionalism. You are not pushing me. You are trying to humiliate me on live television in front of millions of people, and I will not sit here and let that happen. I have too much respect for myself and for my career to ever be treated like this." The room fell silent. The tension was electric. Every eye in the studio held on her, the weight of her words settling like a stone. This was no longer an interview. This was Reba McEntire, commanding the room, demanding respect, and refusing to be diminished. Savannah rose as well, her posture stiff, her expression hardening as smug confidence gave way to defensive anger. She could feel it slipping now. Room, the narrative, the control. "Excuse me," she snapped. "I am the host of this show. I've been doing this for years. I get to ask whatever questions I want. And if you can't handle tough questions, if you can't handle a real conversation, then maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews at all. Maybe you should stay in your lane and sing for your aging fan base." The words landed with an audible thud. Craig stood immediately, stepping between them, palms raised in a calming gesture. His face showed real concern, not for ratings or optics, but for the moment, spiraling out of control. He'd been in broadcasting long enough to recognize when a line had been crossed beyond repair. Okay, he said carefully. "Let's all take a breath. This doesn't need to escalate any further than it already has. Reba, we truly value you being here. You're an important guest to us. Savannah, maybe we can dial this back and refocus on the music." But Reba was already unclipping her microphone. Her movements were slow, steady, deliberate. There was no shouting, no theatrics. Just a quiet, unshakable resolve, the kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you will not tolerate. "Craig," she said gently, "I truly appreciate you trying to keep the peace.